On January 5, 2008, the quiet desert outside of Barstow, California, became the setting for an unimaginable tragedy. It was a night that began like any other. A group of teenagers gathered to hang out, to enjoy the thrill of exploration, and to indulge in the rebellious nature of youth. But for 16-year-old Bodie Scherzer-Potter and her boyfriend, 18-year-old Cody Thompson, what seemed like a harmless night would end in horror. Bodie was known for her passion for old architecture and history, and she was drawn to places like the abandoned military bunkers that dotted the desert landscape. These bunkers, once used for military purposes, were now empty, full of rubbish and covered in graffiti. But for Bodie and others in her circle, these bunkers had transformed into secret meeting spots, places where teens could get away from the world and enjoy a sense of freedom and camaraderie. On that fateful night, Bodie and Cody attended a party at one such bunker. It was a gathering that included more than 30 other young people, all of them eager to enjoy a night of music, laughter, and conversation. But as the hours passed, things started to feel off. One of the elements that stood out that night was the arrival of three unfamiliar figures. Three young men, who no one at the party knew, drove up in a vehicle and asked if they could join the gathering. They were strangers, and yet, for reasons unknown, they were allowed to stay. At the time, no one would have suspected that these three men would soon change the course of two lives forever. As the party began to wind down, people started leaving. Some headed back home, while others decided to move on to different locations. By the time the clock struck late, the remaining people at the party were Bodie and Cody, who had decided to spend the night in Cody's Jeep, away from the crowd. They probably felt a sense of comfort in their seclusion. It was just the two of them, safe in each other's company, but that safety would soon be shattered. Bodie and Cody had no idea that as they settled into the Jeep, they were being watched. The three strangers who had arrived earlier were among the last to leave the party, but instead of heading out, they approached the couple. Without warning, the three men dragged Bodie and Cody out of the vehicle and forced them into the darkness of the bunker. No one could have anticipated what would happen next. What transpired inside that dark, cold bunker was nothing short of a nightmare. The young couple was executed, shot at point-blank range by the men who had lured them there. It wasn't a robbery, nor was it an act of passion. It seemed to be a senseless act, an unprovoked killing rooted in malice and evil intent. The three men, Colin McLaughlin, David Smith, and Cameron Thompson, took the lives of Bodie and Cody with cold precision, without remorse or explanation. The morning after the murder, Bodie's family realized she was missing. Desperate to find her, they reached out to her friends, hoping for any information. What they didn't know was that Bodie's body, along with Cody's, was lying in that same bunker, hidden from view by the very desert that once held only memories of the past. The investigation into Bodie and Cody's deaths began almost immediately. When authorities found the couple's bodies, they quickly identified that they had been killed execution style. As the investigation unfolded, the three men who were last seen at the party were soon arrested. Colin McLaughlin and David Smith were taken into custody first, and Cameron Thompson was apprehended soon after. The authorities uncovered that the three men had planned the killings in advance. They had no prior connection to Bodie or Cody. Their motives were unclear at first, but it was soon evident that the murder was not a random act of violence. The men had targeted Bodie and Cody, and in a senseless fit of rage, had taken their lives. Through the course of the investigation, it was discovered that the three men were known to have been involved in previous criminal activity, but none had committed a crime of this magnitude before. Their motivations were rooted in their own personal issues, and their decision to murder Bodie and Cody appeared to be a violent release of pent-up aggression. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. The arrests of McLaughlin, Smith, and Thompson sent shockwaves through the local community. These were young men, just like Bodie and Cody, and yet they had committed an act so horrific that it left everyone questioning what had gone wrong. In the court hearings that followed, McLaughlin and Smith pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, and both were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thompson, who had cooperated with the authorities and testified against the others, received a lesser sentence, 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter. But no sentence could bring back Bodie and Cody. Their families were left to grieve, to question, and to wonder what could have been. The loss was immeasurable, and the void that was left in their lives could never be filled. Bodhi's mother, Lorraine Scherzer, fought for the demolition of the abandoned bunker, a place that had once been a symbol of youthful rebellion but now stood as a grim reminder of the tragic events that had unfolded there. Her campaign was successful, and the bunker was eventually torn down to prevent anyone from ever returning to that dark place. In the aftermath of this tragedy, the lessons are clear. Always stay cautious, always be aware of your surroundings, and never ignore your instincts. Bodhi's story is a tragic reminder that, sometimes, bad things can happen when we least expect them. But we can learn from her story, just as we can learn from so many others. Safety tip 1. Always stay in a group, especially in unfamiliar or isolated places. The 3 men who murdered Bodhi and Cody specifically targeted them because they were alone. Safety tip 2. If you feel uncomfortable or uneasy about a situation or a place, trust your instincts and leave. Safety tip 3. Always let someone know where you're going, especially when heading into a remote or unfamiliar location. Bodhi's story is one of loss, but also a cautionary tale. It reminds us that life is fragile, and that the safety of those we love must never be taken for granted. Let's honor her memory by staying vigilant, staying safe, and always looking out for each other. What are your thoughts on this case? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story helpful, subscribe for more real-life cases, safety tips, and lessons we can all learn from. Stay safe out there.